That evening in Seattle, the rain fell in thin silver lines, tapping softly against the kitchen window as Emily stood alone with a wooden spoon in her hand. She stared at the old recipe card lying on the counter. It was written in soft, fading ink and old handwriting she recognized only from the framed photographs in the living room. It was David's late mother's handwriting. Emily had discovered the card tucked inside a cookbook earlier that afternoon and had held it for a long moment, unsure whether she should even touch it, let alone cook from it. 2 years had passed since she married Mark, David's father. Yet she still felt like a visitor in her own home when it came to anything connected to David's memories. He had never been rude, never openly distant, but there was a quiet wall, made of unspoken things. He spoke to her politely, smiled when necessary, and kept his heart locked away. She had always wondered how to bridge that gap without hurting him further. Tonight, she finally tried. The kitchen smelled warm, soft, gentle, comforting, nothing like Emily's usual practical meals. She followed the recipe line by line, double-checking every instruction. She wasn't trying to create a perfect dish. She was trying to show David that she cared, deeply, even if she didn't know how to say it yet. When the oven light blinked, she leaned forward, peeking in. The dish looked almost right, at least from the outside. She hoped the taste would be close. She hoped she hadn't crossed any invisible line. As she set the spoon down and wiped her hands on a towel, she heard footsteps behind her. They were light, slow, and familiar. She turned. David stood in the kitchen doorway, hoodie half-zipped, hair messy from studying in his room. His expression softened just slightly when he smelled the air, his brows lifting. "Something smells like my childhood," he said, surprised. Emily's heart tightened. She wasn't sure whether she had done something brave or foolish. "I found a recipe," she said gently. "Your mom's. I wasn't sure if I would do it justice, but I wanted to try." David stepped closer, confusion turning into something more complicated, surprise mixed with hesitation. For years, Emily had avoided touching anything that belonged to his mother. She feared David would think she was trying to take her place. But tonight felt different. Emily felt a pull inside her, a need to reach out before the distance between them became permanent. "You really made it?" he asked, still stunned. Emily nodded. "I wasn't sure if I should, but I hoped. Maybe you could taste it. Tell me if it's close." Those words hung in the air, soft but heavy. Emily wasn't offering food. She was offering an olive branch, a quiet apology for all the years she hadn't known how to connect with him. David didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted to the pot, then back to her. Something softened in his face, something she had never seen before. It wasn't acceptance yet, but it wasn't the careful distance he always kept. It was something new, fragile, like he wasn't sure how to feel. Emily was just about to speak again when the stove timer suddenly beeped. The sharp sound filled the quiet kitchen, breaking the delicate moment. Both of them jumped slightly, and Emily quickly turned off the timer. She felt embarrassed for breaking the silence, as if the kitchen itself had interrupted their first real conversation in months. David let out a small breath, rubbing the back of his neck. "So, what now?" Emily forced a small smile. "Now, I hope it tastes right, and I hope you'll try it." David nodded slowly, almost reluctantly, but not in rejection. More, like he needed a moment to absorb what was happening. For him, memories were not just memories, they were fragile pieces of his mother he held tightly, afraid to lose. Seeing Emily stand in that kitchen, making something his mother used to cook, must have felt like someone stepping into a space he wasn't used to sharing. But still, he didn't walk away. He took a small step closer. "It's been a long time since anyone tried making that," he said, his voice quieting. Emily felt something like hope rise inside her. She wasn't sure if tonight would change their relationship, but it felt like the first open door between them. The first small moment where he let her in, just a little. As steam rose gently from the pot and rain continued whispering outside, Emily realized something important. Sometimes healing didn't happen through big conversations or dramatic gestures. Sometimes it happened through a simple recipe made on a quiet, rainy night, offered with trembling hands and an open heart. And when David finally said, "Okay, I'll try it," Emily knew something had shifted. Something real. Something long overdue. And this was only the beginning. Emily carefully placed 2 bowls on the counter, the warmth of the food rising in gentle waves. She held her breath, unsure if David would take even a bite. The kitchen smelled rich, familiar, and comforting, carrying echoes of a childhood he hadn't revisited in years. For her, it was more than a meal. It was a bridge, a quiet way to show she understood a part of his life she had never dared enter. David stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the bowls, his expression unreadable. He reached out, almost instinctively, and touched the rim of one, feeling the heat. His face softened slightly, a small sign that maybe, just maybe, Emily had crossed the invisible wall between them without breaking it. "You really made it?" he asked, his voice quiet, tinged with disbelief. Emily nodded. "I tried. I followed the recipe. I wasn't sure if it would be close, but I wanted you to taste it. Tell me what you think." David hesitated. He looked down at the food, then back at her, caught between surprise, hesitation, and something unspoken he hadn't admitted to anyone before. Emily watched silently, her heart racing. This was a moment she had imagined countless times, though never this perfectly still, this fragile. He picked up the spoon, fingers trembling slightly, and lifted a small bite to his lips. The room seemed to hold its breath with him. Emily's hands were clasped tightly together, her heart thudding in her chest. This wasn't just about the taste. It was about trust, memories, and letting someone in. David closed his eyes for a moment as the flavors touched his tongue. A soft sigh escaped him, barely audible, but it carried weight. He hadn't realized how much he missed this until now, how a single taste could transport him to afternoons in a bright, sunlit kitchen, his mother humming as she cooked. The world outside his window forgotten for a while. Emily waited. The silence, stretching between them, both tense and comforting at once. Finally, David opened his eyes. "It's really close," he said softly. "It's closer than I thought anyone could get." Emily's chest lifted with relief. "That means a lot," she whispered. "I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I just wanted to understand, and maybe share something important with you." He nodded, but his face betrayed a swirl of emotions: gratitude, surprise, and a flicker of guilt. "I didn't expect you to try. I thought, I don't know, that you'd leave it alone, or maybe it wasn't your place." "It felt like it was," Emily said, her voice calm but honest. "I wanted to show you that I care about more than just being your stepmom. I care about you and your memories and everything that made you who you are." David looked down at the bowl again, then back at her. "It's strange," he admitted. "I wasn't expecting this connection over food. But it feels right, like you finally understand something about me." Emily smiled softly, her heart warming. Sometimes it's the small things that matter the most. Not grand gestures, not speeches. It's just a moment, a taste, a memory shared. David's gaze softened. "I've been holding on to things I shouldn't. Anger, fear, maybe even some resentment. And I didn't know how to let it go." Emily reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. "You don't have to let go all at once. You just need to take one step. One small step. And I'll be here." He looked at her hand, then at her eyes. And for the first time in years, his walls began to crumble. A small, almost shy smile appeared. "Thank you for this, for trying, for caring." Emily nodded, her own eyes misting. "I'll always try, David. I promise." He picked up the spoon again, this time eating more freely, tasting the dish with a mixture of nostalgia and quiet admiration. Emily watched him, a wave of hope flowing through her. She realized that tonight a tiny shift had begun, not instant. Trust, not instant closeness, but a first step towards something stronger. The rain continued to patter against the windows. The kitchen filled with the comforting aroma of the dish, and for a few moments the past and present coexisted peacefully. David finally spoke again, his voice quieter, steadier. I never thought I'd feel this way about someone making my mom's recipe, but I'm glad you did. Emily smiled, feeling a gentle joy she hadn't known she needed. She had offered more than a taste of food. She had offered understanding, patience, and the start of a bond that could grow slowly, carefully, into something lasting. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, David's expression shifted slightly, his brows knitting with uncertainty. "There's something I should tell you," he said, his voice low. Emily's heart skipped a beat. He hesitated, looking at the bowls once more. "Something I've kept inside for a long time." The moment, held, fragile, and tense. The simple act of sharing a meal had unlocked something inside him. And Emily waited, ready to listen, ready to support him, knowing that tonight might be the first night their hearts truly began to connect. And with that, a quiet tension filled the air. A sense that the night had more to reveal, a truth he had been carrying that could finally bring them closer than ever before. The porch was wet and shiny from the rain as David sat on the wooden steps, hood pulled over his head, staring into the darkness. The night was quiet except for the occasional drip of water from the roof. Emily followed him outside her steps, careful, not wanting to startle him. She sat beside him, letting the silence stretch for a few moments. Sometimes words weren't necessary. Presence alone could be enough. "You okay?" she asked gently. Her voice was soft, steady, filled with concern but not demanding. David let out a shaky breath, his hands gripping the edges of his hoodie. I didn't expect tonight to feel like this," he admitted. "I mean, the food. It was perfect, but it's more than that. It's everything it represents." Emily nodded, understanding instantly. She had hoped the meal would be a bridge, but she didn't expect it to carry so much weight. "I just wanted to connect with you, David," she said. "Not replace anyone, not erase anything. I just wanted you to feel like we could start somewhere." He turned slightly, looking at her profile, but quickly looked away. "It's strange. I've held so many feelings I didn't know how to say: anger, sadness, maybe even fear. And I didn't want to hurt anyone, so I kept it all inside." Emily reached out and placed her hand lightly on his arm. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore," she said. "You can let it out. You can take small steps. I'll be here, always." David nodded slowly, his eyes glistening in the porch light. "I thought, if I accepted you, it meant letting go of Mom. And I wasn't ready for that. I didn't know how to feel safe with anyone else in this house." Emily's chest tightened. She had imagined moments like this, but nothing could prepare her for the raw honesty in his voice. "Accepting me doesn't mean forgetting her," she said gently. "It doesn't erase your memories or your love for her. It just means there's room for more love, more connections, more people who care about you." He exhaled slowly, as if letting out a weight he had carried for years. "I've been so angry at Dad for moving on," he said quietly, "and at myself for feeling like I should be angry at you too. I didn't know how to separate everything." Emily gave him a small, reassuring smile. "It's okay. Feelings aren't always simple. But honesty is the first step, and you're taking it now." David finally turned to look at her fully. I never told anyone this before, not even Dad. But tonight, when you offered me that dish, it felt like someone finally understood. Like you reached into a part of me I'd locked away." Emily felt her own eyes water, not from sadness, but from the quiet relief of connection. "David, I can't replace your mom. I never could. But I want to be someone you can trust. Someone who cares about you. Someone who can be here when you need it." He looked down again, running his fingers through his wet hair. "I've been so careful all these years. Keeping walls up, pretending I was fine. But tonight, I realized I don't have to be alone anymore. I don't have to do this by myself. Emily squeezed his shoulder gently. You never have to. Not as long as I'm here. Not as long as Dad is here. We're a family, David. And families work together even when it's hard. For the first time, he gave a small, genuine smile. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for trying, for caring, for everything. Emily returned the smile, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. It's just the beginning, she said. We'll take it one step at a time, together. David nodded, still quiet, but there was a visible change in him. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly. The heaviness in his eyes lightened. The rain had stopped, leaving the night fresh and calm, almost like the air itself was giving them a chance to breathe freely. Emily remained there with him, silent, letting him gather his thoughts. She didn't push him to speak, because she knew he needed to come to his own understanding. Sometimes presence mattered more than words. After a few moments, David broke the silence. I think. I can start over, he said softly. Not everything at once, but maybe. Little by little, Emily nodded, her heart swelling. That's all I ask. Little by little. He looked back at the porch light, reflecting on the wet steps, and back at her. You surprised me tonight, he admitted. In a way I didn't expect, and it feels good. Emily smiled gently. I'm glad, she said, because I feel the same way. About us, about this moment, about the chance to be a family. He looked down at the bowl they had shared inside, a symbol of connection and understanding, and then back at her. There's something else, he said, his voice hesitant but determined. Something I've kept inside for a long time, and I think I need to tell you. Emily's heart tightened with anticipation. I'm listening, she said softly. The night wrapped around them quietly, carrying the weight of his unspoken words, and Emily knew that what he was about to share could change everything. It was a moment poised between the past and the future, between fear and hope, and both of them were ready to take the next step together. Mark's unexpected return froze the room. Emma and Ethan exchanged a quick glance. The trust they had just built now weighed down by the uncertainty of his reaction. Mark's eyes scanned them carefully, noting the closeness, the unspoken conversation lingering in the space between them. His face wasn't angry, but it carried a mixture of concern and curiosity. The kind of expression a father wears when he senses something important is unfolding. Emma took a deep breath. She had faced the hardest step, already honesty with Ethan, but now she had to include Mark. We need to talk, she said calmly, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her chest. Ethan nodded beside her, the tension in his shoulders making him seem smaller, yet braver for sitting through this moment. All three sat together in the living room, the soft hum of the evening settling around them like a quiet blanket. Emma spoke. First, choosing words carefully but truthfully. She told Mark about the conversation with Ethan, about his frustration, his longing for connection, and the fear both of them had carried. She explained how Ethan had asked her to stop pretending, to truly be present, and how she had responded with honesty and commitment. Mark listened quietly. His eyes softened as he took in every word. He could see the sincerity in Emma's expression, the care she had shown, and the courage it had taken for both her and Ethan to be so open. There was no shame, no hidden motives in honesty, and a desire to connect as a family. Ethan, encouraged by Emmas.com, spoke next. Dad, I'm not a kid anymore, but I still need support. Sometimes I feel alone, even when I'm with people. I know you and Mom. I know Emma has tried, but I didn't know how to say it. I needed her to just be here. And she was. She stayed. Mark's eyes flicked between them, absorbing every word. His hand instinctively went to Ethan's shoulder, giving a gentle squeeze. He nodded slowly, his voice calm but firm. I'm glad you told me, both of you. This honesty, it matters. I can see now that you needed this. Emma, you didn't replace anyone. You became someone he can depend on. Emma felt a relief wash over her. The weight of fear, that nagging concern about being misunderstood, finally lifted. She had worried that her closeness with Ethan might appear inappropriate, but Mark's understanding smile reassured her. This was not about anything romantic or forbidden. It was about trust, care, and family connection. Ethan, feeling the tension ease, let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Can we start over? Really start over, not pretending. Not avoiding anything. Just being real. His voice was soft but hopeful. And Emma saw the vulnerability that had guided every step of their conversation. Mark nodded, his eyes reflecting pride and warmth. Yes, we start over. Together. No pretending. We face things honestly, support each other, and grow as a family. Emma reached out and placed her hand lightly on Ethan's. It was a gesture of solidarity, reassurance, and human warmth. Simple and safe. Ethan squeezed her hand back briefly, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond they had rebuilt. There were no grand gestures, no unnecessary drama. Just the steady comfort of mutual understanding. The room, once heavy with tension and uncertainty, now felt lighter. A fragile sense of peace had settled over them, the kind that comes after. Honesty and trust had been laid bare. Emma realized that the night had transformed completely. What began as a simple massage to ease physical tension had become a turning point. A moment where fear and caution gave way to openness and connection. Mark's voice broke the silence. I know it won't be perfect immediately. There will be hard moments, missteps, and misunderstandings. But honesty like this changes everything. It builds trust and allows us to truly be a family. Ethan nodded, absorbing the meaning behind the words. For the first time, he felt fully understood, not just tolerated or guided, but genuinely seen. Emma's heart swelled, knowing that the effort, the fear, and the patience had all led to this moment. They sat together quietly, the unspoken tension finally released. Each of them understood their role not as perfect parents or children, but as people committed to showing up, to listening, and to supporting one another. The night had started with a simple act of care, a massage, but it ended with something far more profound: trust, connection, and a renewed sense of family.